Hello, I'm Jacqueline Gelano, and I'm joined here with Dan Albus, who is the current MP for Okanagan Lake West, South Kelowna, and he's running again in the federal election to be the Member of Parliament. So, Dan, I would love to know, why are you running again in this election?
Well, thanks for asking, Jacqueline. So first of all, there's a lot of serious issues in this country right now. People can't afford their groceries. Seniors are making very tough choices between heating, eating, and medicines. And quite frankly, if you look at some of the deterioration of public services, we can look at our healthcare system, we can look at our justice system, the catch and release that's happening. People feel inundated that their governments, provincially, federally, are not doing what it takes. So I'm there to tell people that whether it be standing up to Trump and the American unjustified tariffs, whether that be building our military, or having a plan to build our economy so we can reinforce our social safety net and do all the things we need to do to build the new trade infrastructure, like getting our pipelines to Tidewater so we can start having alternatives to the Americans. I look at places like Japan, I look at places like Germany that have come to this country asking for our resources, and I'm thinking about all the paychecks that would come to pay for these projects and for our systems. So these are really big issues. I feel I'm a serious member of Parliament. I treat people with respect. I also know that these issues are going to take a lot of work and thought. And I've always made myself a constituency first MP. So when I listen to people, I try to thread in their values, their priorities, the things that they want to see compromises on, because we live in a big country, Canada, and to try to wrap that in a bow in Ottawa. And that's not always easy to do, but I try every time.
So what would you do, and you do have experience with this just in the last government here, but what would you do even if the Conservatives don't win a majority government and they don't win, they're not in power? What are you going to do if you're a member of the opposition?
So I have a strong track record on being accessible. So when people have an issue, I call them. So whether it be a passport issue, like we've seen in the past, or if it had to do, for example, the residents of Casa Loma on the west side, they had a blinking cell tower on the Kelowna side that was causing many of them issues because they couldn't sleep at night because of all the blinking. So I listen to them, I take action on those things, and then I try to get results. And like we saw the dimming of those bell towers, I was very thankful to the people in Bell for helping with that. Yeah. But that's what an MP does. They are, first of all, accessible, and then accountable. And my weekly MP reports really allow me to share what I'm seeing and hearing in Ottawa and to make sure my priorities are matching my constituents. And people tell me very, very frankly when I get it right and when I get it wrong, and then I make adjustments. Mm-hmm. But again, accessible, accountable, getting results.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the key issues that we hear as journalists in the area is the cost of living, housing. What specifically would you like to see happen, and what would you be advocating for if elected?
Yeah, so first of all, we want to completely remove the carbon tax. The Mark Carney Liberals have zero rated it, but they have said that they are going to shift it to the industrial side. So at a time where Trump is saying that he's going to put extra tariffs on our steel, aluminum, and other industrial producers, we're talking about adding extra taxes to them. That's going to make life less affordable. Farmers have already said that the increased cost from the carbon tax, whether it be to heat their greenhouses or to transport their produce to market, or even fertilizers. We make a lot of potash in this country. And raising that industrial price will make everything less affordable, except the only difference under Mark Carney's plan under this industrial carbon tax is that you'll see it in your pocketbook because you'll feel it, but you won't see it on the line item of your bill. So that's first. We're going to offer real tax relief. We're also talking about raising the minimum taxation threshold for working seniors, because there's too many seniors that right now, because the stock market is just ricocheting because of Mr. Trump, we're saying that we're going to allow working seniors to have a higher threshold. So they won't pay any taxes at all, up to $34,000. That's good for their families. And for those people that are forced to cash in their RRSPs and convert them into RIFs, we are saying we're going to give an extra 2 years. If you're turning age 71 right now, you're seeing the stock market and your RRSPs drop, and that's not fair. So we're going to offer more flexibility. But for working families and for seniors who can't go back to work, we're offering on the lowest tax bracket, lowering the tax bracket by 15%. So that'll save the average individual taxpayer $900. So a family, working family of two, that's $1,800 back in their pocket. But look, there's so many big issues. We are seeing a net, our GDP per capita, so for every man, woman, and child in the Okanagan and right across the country, we are less wealthy since 2017. That is a continued trend that the Trudeau and now Carney Liberals, that's their record, a lost decade of progress. If we're going to support our social safety net, whether that be the new dental program that they've brought forward, we'll protect that, but we'll protect it not just by keeping the current people there, we'll also make sure we have the money to pay for it. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're talking about, putting this country back to work again.
Mm-hmm. So there has been, like with the Conservative government, a lot of talk of tax cuts. Removing barriers for particular people who are earning less. Where is the money going to come from then to support the social safety net programs?
So I'll give you, we have a simple solution, a one-for-one rule. Actually, the Martin government, or I should say the Chrétien government used the one-for-one rule that if a minister puts forward a new additional dollar in savings or spending, they need to find a dollar in savings. So for example, with our GST cut, and this is a big thing because this will actually help supply more housing, if we cut the GST completely and then challenge provinces to do the same, we're going to take that money from other existing housing programs that have not been good. So for example, they're building bureaucracy, like so the Housing Accelerator, there's the Community Infrastructure Plan that is supposed to be specifically for housing. Those aren't performing. If you just talk to local people here, we're seeing housing drops in terms of new houses being built, particularly in British Columbia. So the chair of the, or I should say the CEO of the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation said on December 10th that the Conservative plan to cut the GST would create more housing. Mm-hmm. So that's how we're going to do it. We're going to take existing programs that aren't performing and we're going to put it into direct tax cuts that helps everyone.
Okay. One of the other things that's been talked about is reducing barriers to resource extraction, like fossil fuel and forestry. Here, specifically in the Okanagan, your riding, we see the impacts of climate change pretty directly with the wildfires. We have a landslide in West Kelowna right now. What are you going to do to make sure we're balancing the need for resource extraction and the funds that come from that with protecting our environment and protecting the people that live in these places, like specifically the Okanagan?
Yeah, so I find it incredibly troubling that we have both provincially and federally governments that say that if you don't support their climate programs like a carbon tax, that somehow you deny that climate change is a real thing. Mm-hmm. So let's just point out that it's both the provincial and federal governments right now that have zero rated and essentially have not told us what the plan is on industrial emissions. I will say pulp and paper is still an important area of our economy in British Columbia, aluminum as well. And so suddenly jacking up those taxes is going to see a lot of job losses for sure. But when it comes to the environment, let's be mindful of this. We have the ability to create liquefied natural gas that is powered by clean hydroelectricity. So it'll be the cleanest natural gas, half the methane emissions or greenhouse gas emissions of coal. We should be displacing large coal-fired facilities, places like India and in Asia that use that outdated source and replace it with clean Canadian LNG. If we do that, we can see global emissions drop. That's how we help our to drop emissions, by saying what can Canada do that no other country can do. And let's just be mindful that when we do it here in Canada, whether that be oil and gas, we do so with the highest of standards. Right now, I think it's wrong that, for example, YVR in Richmond, they get all of their jet fuel from Cherry Point. Well, guess what? We sell to the Americans at a discount the fuel that they refine on their side without the same level of stringency towards environmental protection, then sell it back to us at a premium in American dollars. So we need to start looking and asking ourselves, are we actually helping the environment by having these policies where we buy at such large prices, such heavy prices, and support less environmental, support in these gas and fuels that are not processed to our standards. So here in Canada, we have the people, we have the know-how, we can do more for the world by embracing these things. And like I said, how are we going to fund our social safety net? How are we going to build our military? How are we going to get less dependent on the Americans? This is the way to do it. And the last thing I would just say too, David Eby has said publicly, our Premier, that he wants critical mineral mines to be fast-tracked. Well, to do that, we're going to need roads to there. We're going to need to make sure that, that we can have those permits done quickly. And if we can do that, we're also going to need the trade infrastructure to get those things to new markets other than the Americans. So I really look forward to working with my provincial and whoever ends up running the federal government to make these things happen. It's good for Canada, it's also good for the environment, and it's good for the world.
Well, speaking of the environment, we live in such a beautiful place. It's gorgeous here. What is your favorite part of your riding?
So I take my kids quite often to some of the beaches around Summerland and Peachland. And I think when you just walk down, every day I see at Galatly in West Kelowna or on Beach Avenue in Peachland, the incredible views. And most of those sidewalks actually were paid with the government gas tax. So I really, for someone who has always come from a small business and local government perspective, it's great to see when the federal government just gives an allotment every year and says to municipalities, you get to decide where you invest these dollars. And if you walk on Beach Avenue or Galatly, you just look into it and say, wow, we've done so well here. And that's a public amenity I think everyone supports.
Well, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks, Jacqueline.